tale as old as time. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. I'm your host Emily and today we are counting down our list of the top 10 dark Beauty and the Beast theories that will ruin your childhood. Number 10. Belle has Stockholm Syndrome. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition where a hostage begins to identify with and feel sympathy for their captor. It's essentially a coping mechanism. Now in Belle's case, she is held captive by the Beast in his castle. Over time, she begins to see the Beast as a kind and gentle creature, despite his outward appearance, and she eventually falls in love with him. This is likely due to the Beast's treatment of Belle, which is much different than how he treats his other servants. Belle eventually falls in love with the Beast, which is a perfect example of Stockholm Syndrome. So it's not real love, and this theory truly makes sense to me. Number 9. Gaston is a hero. Okay, just hear me out. This theory suggests that not only is Gaston the hero of the movie, he's actually the savior of the town and possibly all of France. The theory goes that sometime prior to the start of the movie, France was overrun with poultry. Helpless at the claws of the chickens, the people of France were preparing to abandon their country when a lone child stepped forward. In the song Gaston, he claims he ate 4 dozen eggs as a child, and as an adult, he now eats 5 dozen. The theory claims that Gaston ate all the chicken eggs and prevented them from overrunning the nation. However, this led to Gaston becoming addicted to eggs, which the movie establishes are not cheap these days. Now, what Gaston hadn't accounted for was developing an addiction to eggs. As he aged, he ate more and more, and with the chicken crisis over, his addiction began costing him financially. There's a scene during Gaston's song where he motions to a wall full of his hunting trophies. But why are they there? Does he own the bar? No, he sold them for egg money. The fact that he never brings up his egg addiction or his prior heroism can be attributed to another one of Gaston's defining character traits, his struggle to be emotionally open and his modesty. The theory is so funny to me, and with all the information in the film we're given, it seems like Gaston eats 21,840 eggs a year. But with his demise, what will happen to all the chickens? Will they take over again, and with this time no one to stop them? Who knows? Number 8. Chip is the Beast's illegitimate son with the Enchantress. Chip is the adorable teacup who calls Mrs. Potts mommy throughout the film. I love him, he's so cute, but it's proposed that she is not his real mother and that Chip is actually the illegitimate son of the prince. The theory points to the fact that Miss Potts appears to be way too old to have had a young child when she returns to human form. Amanda Menon gave this theory, stating, "The only way anything in this movie makes sense is if the castle's inhabitants do not physically age while under the spell, or at least age much slower." This still doesn't account for how someone as old as Miss Potts could get pregnant in pre-fertility medicine France. She asks, why are we pretending Mrs. Potts is Chip's mother? Who is Mrs. Potts close to? Who would have had cause to hide a child? And hope medical knowledge doesn't advance to the point that we know what menopause is anytime soon. It couldn't be any of the servants. Who would care if they had a somehow improper child? It couldn't be her family, they'd also be servant class, and why wouldn't he just call her grandma or whatever? The only answer is the prince. So if Mrs. Potts is covering for the prince, who is Chip's real mother? The theory goes on to suggest that the Enchantress actually seduced the prince and gave birth to his son, only for the prince to scorn her and take her child because he can't have any bastard heirs running around. Due to this, the sorrow and betrayal drove her mad, as opposed to just being offended that the prince didn't let a stranger into his home, and she cursed the castle and everyone inside, including her own child. Now, that's just sad. Number 7. Belle is mentally ill and hallucinating. To explain the Enchantress's curse and the transformation of the castle staff in a way that doesn't involve magic, Peter Gross theorized that Belle is actually schizophrenic and that she imagines Lumiere and Cogsworth as anthropomorphized objects as a way of mentally coping with the unfair inequality of the social classes. The Enchantress is in fact Belle's own superego, attempting to show her the high moral cost of maintaining a luxurious lifestyle lifestyle enjoyed by the upper class. In order to exist comfortably within such an unfair system of wealth distribution, Belle would need to stop viewing people as human beings, deserving of rights and dignity, and instead view them as anthropomorphic objects, visual representations of their material functions within the household. According to the theory, Belle's schizophrenia manifests in visual and sensory hallucinations, and the writer points out that the first two symptoms used to diagnose schizophrenia are voices heard arguing and voices commenting on one's actions, and both are used to introduce the castle servants. Number 6. The Beast was just a child when he was cursed. Now, one of the biggest questions Beauty and the Beast fans have had concerns are the prince's age when he was cursed by the Enchantress and turned into the Beast. The curse states that he will remain a beast until his 21st year. Writer Jenna Gilliam interprets this to mean his 21st birthday. Now, considering that Lumiere and Cogsworth later say they've been resting for 10 years, the prince must have been only 10 or 11 years old when the Enchantress placed him under her spell. Jenna also points out that the 1997 direct-to-video sequel Beauty and the Beast: The Enchanted Christmas essentially confirms that the prince was a preteen child. Now, as a child, you were told not to talk to strangers, so if the Enchantress asked to go in his castle and she looked frightening, it only makes sense that the prince would say no. Stranger danger, people. Number 5. The Beast is a figment of Belle's imagination. A redditor came up with this theory, stating the early characterization of the Beast and Gaston are extremely similar: violent, brutish, boorish, ill-mannered, and neither one can read. Belle reads a book of fairy tales at the beginning of the movie that majorly foreshadows the plot twist of the movie to come. It's theorized that Belle brings home the book, and that's where her elaborate fantasy begins. Belle and Gaston are married immediately, and the entire rest of the film is Belle's fantasy of reforming her violent, ill-tempered husband into a well-mannered prince. This is why the villagers don't recall the presence of the castle in one's day's riding distance, and why Belle is not shocked by anything she encounters in the enchanted castle. In fact, she's excited by them. They are her fantasy, drawing from the fairy tale. The theory also argues that she imagines Maurice being carted off to a mental institution due to her mixed feelings towards him for marrying her off to Gaston, and that the climax of the film is a representation of Belle's hopes that the prince inside will triumph over her true husband. Number 4. Gaston's end dooms the village. Yes, Gaston is very unlikable, but it seems like he provides a lot for the village, so this theory argues that Gaston is beloved by the villagers because he provides the town with food and supplies through his hunting and leadership skills following the random and sudden disappearance of the local royalty who previously oversaw the town. Additionally, the theory proposes that Gaston's prestigious egg consumption has single-handedly propped up the poultry industry in the region. Therefore, his demise would lead to the suffering of his village under a reinstated monarch and the crashing of the poultry economy, which in turn would create a famine. Number 3. The Beast had 21 years to find true love. The curse states that he will remain a beast until his 21st year. Now, there's been debates as to whether this means his 21st birthday or 21 years. This theory states that the spell the witch laid on the castle at the beginning of Beauty and the Beast was not referring to Prince Adam's 21st birthday, but the spell would last for 21 years. This would make the Beast quite a bit older than originally presumed, potentially in his 40s, which seems fitting in the way he interacts with Belle. This would also provide an explanation as to why Prince Adam appears as an adult in his portrait, a question which audiences of the movie have pondered for years. This is just disturbing though, because at the time Belle is 17 years old. She fell in love and married someone who is at least 20 years older than her. That's just gross. Number 2. The villagers are stuck in a time loop. One of the biggest plot holes in Beauty and the Beast 1991, as well as the live action in 2017 remake, is that no one in the village remembers that the castle exists in the forest right next to their town. Like, right next door, and that there was also a prince that lived there and his staff, and they all went missing. I feel like that's something that someone would notice. One theory as to why the villagers forget suggests that the Enchantress who cursed the prince and his staff also put a curse on the town that essentially trapped them in a time loop. However, Belle and her father Maurice seem to be outside of that loop and aren't confined to it. Why? Well, maybe because she's meant to be with the prince. Some proof of this is that Belle is able to walk through a crowded marketplace without looking, and she knows exactly when everyone wakes up every morning. For example, she talks about the baker having the exact same tray of goods every day, saying, "There goes the baker with his his tray like always, the same old bread and rolls to sell, every morning just the same. Now being stuck in a time loop makes sense as to why they don't remember, why they do the same thing every day, and why they find Belle so strange. And coming in at number 1 is the staff lure women. Another theory is that the castle servants who turned into household items were attempting to help the beast by luring women for the beast to woo. It points to Lumiere in a line from our song Be Our Guest, in which he says the servants have been rusting for 10 years. It's said that this is a reference not to the fact that they have been under a spell for a decade, but the last chance they had to put on a show for anyone was 10 years prior, during the last attempt Beast made to fall in love. This is a valid but inconclusive reading of the lyric, as the line could be interpreted either way, but the theory goes even farther by suggesting that when the Beast gave up one of his captives, he left them to starve as he planned to let Maurice starve. While Disney would probably never explicitly write something like this, Beauty and the Beast was perhaps unintentionally left open to interpretation for this and other wild theories concerning Beast. As uncomfortable as it is, it seems very possible that the Beast could have previously trapped women in the castle with the hopes of breaking the curse. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 dark Beauty and the Beast theories that will ruin your childhood. I rewatched the 1991 film last night, and watching it as an adult gives it a whole new meaning. Do you think any of these theories could be true? I definitely do. Let us know down in the comments below, and hey, why not like and subscribe while you're down there? I'm your host Emily, and I'll see you next time. Peace.